Hey, welcome to the next edition of the Dragonproof e-commerce podcast. This is Rick Wilson. I am CEO of Miva, as well as author and host of Dragonproof e-commerce and the podcast. The last few weeks, especially if you've been listening to the podcast regularly, we've been covering heavy topics, and that's because it's been a heavy time. And I thought it was appropriate for us to dig into those topics because those topics impact business leaders and entrepreneurs as much as everyone else in the world. But there's an old saying that business goes on, and I'm not saying that to be cynical, but people have to be able to support their families and do business and function and live. Otherwise, problems compound. And so the question is, how do we do that in a safe way? And is there anything we can do to support that? We should. So I want to keep talking about good strategies for keeping your store open and successful because that feels right. And with that, I've invited Marc Vila, Director of Marketing for Coleman and Company, which makes custom apparel printing and embroidery systems. I think they're down in Tampa, but I'll let Marc talk about that. But more importantly, he's also host of his own podcast, Custom Apparel Startups. He's been doing 129 episodes, I think, maybe over the last 5 years, but I'll let him talk about that. That's impressive. My goal is to get to numbers like that. I think we're in the low teens at this point. And so Marc is a digital marketing expert, but his content's also very empowering and inspiring, using content to help entrepreneurs really go for it. So with that, let's welcome Marc. And Marc, why don't you tell us who you are?
Well, thank you very much, Rick. That's a great introduction, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. So just to let everyone know a little bit about who I am, my name is Marc Vila, as you said, and I work for a company called Coldesi. So Coldesi, we specialize in on-demand printing solutions. These include textile print solutions like embroidery machines. We also have UV printers, t-shirt printers, things of that nature. So we deal with a lot of small businesses all the way up to large enterprise businesses as well. So we see a lot of different things happening in the market. Specifically, I'm the director of marketing for Coleman and Company, which is our supply and apparel store, our e-commerce store. And I've been there doing that for about 7 years. And we are I'm excited to have this conversation with you because I think it's really important.
How long have you been doing these specific podcasts?
So it's been about 5 years approximately. Really, it started with I used to listen to a podcast called Hardcore History, if you've heard of it. And this gentleman would just talk about history and all the weird things behind it. And I said, there's so many weird things and interesting things in our industry that our customers don't know about or should know about that I think it could be entertaining and informative. And I went over to my partner there, Mark Stevenson, he's the director of marketing specifically for the Coldesi equipment and such on side of the business. And he said, well, what's a podcast? So I sent him the Hardcore History podcast.
I mean, that kind of gets into what I was going to say is that digital marketing is kind of like dog years, right? I mean, 20 years ago, none of this even existed. And you've been doing this for 5 years, which is crazy. So it's always new. It's always the unknown. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I want to hear the rest.
No, so that's kind of it. Then we just started. And originally we weren't doing them that often. We're doing once every couple weeks, once a month. We just said, let's hit the big stuff. Let's hit the things that our customers should know how to do. So we brought our IT expert in. Talk to us about IT and what should a small business know? We brought a leasing and finance expert in, and we just had these different experts we would bring in, and then we would talk about our stuff. And the goal was to always where we teach people how to use t-shirt printers. We teach them how to use embroidery machines. We show them how to get started. Coldesi and our family of companies, this is all the things we do. But so many of our customers, especially small businesses, they didn't know anything else to do. So we had some people failing just for the sheer fact that they never thought of like, well, you know what, I should hire an accountant. Right. Which seems like such a simple concept, right? You have a business, you should have an accountant, but a lot of folks don't think about it that deep. You think about it, I'm going to get a t-shirt printing machine. I'm going to print t-shirts. I'm going to sell them, profit, And so we tried to bridge that gap by giving some more information out there for free, not for a charged service, but just because we thought it would be great for our customers and our industry as a whole.
So essentially you were figuring out as you went. I mean, ultimately charting unknowns, just like your customers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you think unknowns, even cataclysmic ones, like some of the stuff we're going through now, are inherent to doing business, to marketing?
You know what? So I've been in business, quote unquote, 25 years, of my life, right? So ever since I was a teenager, I was in some sort of a business working for people or for myself. Um, Huge changes and uncharted territory is the norm for business. That's what's normal for business. I remember as a teenager working in an auto parts store, and we got bought out by another company. That's a massive change for all of us as employees, for
Yep.
our customers, for that company. So change is normal. I've worked in the real estate industry, and mortgage rates and interest rates have a massive change, and they can change quick.
Yep.
Laws change. Most changes, I feel, only happen. They're micro level changes, though. They're when you have a law change that has to do with how real estate paperwork gets processed, that specific sector, that specific industry is going through chaos. Meanwhile, a restaurant doesn't know any difference.
Right. Now, as a marketer, I mean, is there any way to prepare for? So it's one thing to be expecting of micro changes you can't see coming, but is there any way to prepare for a year like 2020?
So, it's funny. When a little bit ahead of this podcast, Chris and I had an opportunity to chat here, one of your associates, and we were, and I'd emailed to you and him as well. And I was talking about a concept, right? And this is one of those things that happens when, I think, if you're an artist or a marketer, which I kind of think of us being cousins, artists and marketers, that you get inspired all of a sudden by something. So I'll give you a brief story of how I was inspired, and then kind of what the solution is. So I had a neighbor down the road, and we're talking about, we get these weird ants here that are invasive species, right? And they are just, it's the weirdest thing. Nothing, you can't get rid of them. Right? You can't get rid of them. There's this, you're bound to have millions of them. You can only control them. So we're talking about, he said, how do I get these out of my house? And then we're talking about different things. Then he's talking about, and I got snakes that I saw in my yard, and I was just a snake in my garage. We're talking about all these pests, per se, invading his home. And I said, well, I'm not having all of those problems. I said, but let me ask you, have you actually gone through your house and done kind of just like a basic pests prevention? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, check all the cracks in your doors, seal anything up. If you have a hole in the side of your house, fix it. If there's a dirt hole, fill it. I said, just basics, so stuff can't get in. And I said, because when you do that, then when the ants come or the snakes come, you're just dealing with one problem. And so anyway, that kind of gave me this inspiration of how I've always thought of marketing and how I do it, right? Is that marketing needs to be this all-encompassing concept of how you're treating your business and what you're doing. And then when crises come, when big changes come, because a big change that's good can be just as straining on a marketing department as a crisis.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the merger I mentioned earlier, when we've gone through, when I was a teenager, I dealt with a merger. As working with Coleman and Company, we've dealt with 3 mergers, and those are massive to deal with. So I started writing things down, because I like to be a little corny and silly when it comes to coming up with marketing ideas, and we could talk about some of them, but I kind of came up with this peachy marketing concept, and it's an acronym, because I think stupid acronyms are fun to write articles about. But it's a concept of creating a marketing system, a marketing philosophy for your business that is evergreen, and it's preparing yourself for everything. Just like you might prepare your home to make sure you don't have infestations from different pests.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, what you're describing about preparing your home is sort of a core part of the Dragonproof philosophy. And then even going back to talking about how marketing and artists are cousins, I think that's part of, how your podcast is part marketing, part self-help. You're really just helping customers get what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get to the peachy details in a bit.
Yeah,
but,
no problem.
Let's talk about the one of the current dragons. COVID has made marketing really hard right now, and many people are struggling with messaging. Do you worry about making content that that has an eye for a year from now, or are you just focused on today?
Okay, so this was something that um, was was a struggle for, I think, everybody in the marketing community out there, trying to figure out what do I say, what are we supposed to do? So as this comes in, I find it's hard to answer, but if you've got a strong marketing philosophy within your business, it's actually um, not too hard at all. Right. And this is what I mean by that is you've got to have a formula, right, for your marketing and for your business. Right. And the formula is basically, what am I going to do to get business now?
Yep.
Plus, what is that going to yield to in business later? And then that's going to equal a total amount of business, right? So it's a simple formula. If you have a business if you sell t-shirts that are just funny stuff, whether we have customers that do, they're all meme based, news based.
Oh yeah, totally.
It's only now, right? The only content that they create is about what's happening now. And their long-term goal is just, as long as I keep getting more customers now, maybe I'll get some of those repeats. There's another strategy of that. It's only a long-term strategy, meaning that if you run a business that's radon gas detection for commercial buildings, right? What are you really going to write about COVID-19?
Sure.
You've got to make sure that any business looking for this radon gas detection system, that's going to cost $250,000, that they know how to find you and they're finding the right content. So I think it's important to find current and evergreen, and then your business really determines what that is. One little comment that I thought about it was, and we can be honest here, right? That anybody listening to this, at some point in time, you got some COVID fatigue in your email inbox, and as soon as you saw, you didn't care what your favorite music streaming service was doing about COVID-19, right?
Absolutely. As much as I've been doing a podcast that covers it routinely, we have not sent out a single email with the infamous message from the CEO. I'm not going to send I'm not going to send an email to my entire list of customers giving them my opinion on COVID. They watch the news. They can form opinions.
Yeah. So it's hard to balance that concept, right? I might care what my local restaurant is doing, right?
Yeah, right. Because you might go there and get food.
Yeah, I'm going there to get food, and maybe I do care about that. But I don't care about my streaming service. What my music streaming service maybe should do is maybe create some playlists for me that I might find relevant at this point in time. So, and send an email that says, music to listen to when you're feeling down, music to listen to help, stress reducing music to listen to alone. All of these things are relevant for the time. They're also evergreen, because you're always going to be alone, and you're always going to be, not always, but there are going to be times when you're alone in the future. There's going to be times when you're sad in the future. So I think there's a nice balance there on how they should do that.
Does that essentially mean, when we're talking about personalizing content, some of it's short-term needs for some customers and others long-term for others, and a mixture of things that are both?
Yeah. So that's interesting, right? When we talk about personalizing content, I actually mean it in a couple different ways when I talk about personalizing content. So really what I mean about it is maybe even personifying your company, or making the content personal to you and your customer. So when we're talking about creating content that's personal, so you care about people more than you do things, right?
Yep.
You care about your spouse and your children and your pets more than you do your car. So if you're in a car accident, the first thing you do is you look over, you look in the back seat, is everybody okay? Everyone is okay. Then you get out and you see what's going on with the car. Or further, you probably even get out and ask the other person in the act, are you okay?
Yep.
Right? So you care more about doing business with a company that you like, that's personal, that you know who they are, than you do dealing business with just a regular company. I care more about doing business with Martin, the lawn guy, than I do with Southern Landscapes.
And are there any practical examples of how Martin, or Southern Landscapes may personalize content or personify content to you that keeps you connected to Martin, and yet also accomplishes keeping you guys top of mind, keeping them top of mind to you?
Yeah, actually, so I think about this all the time because I notice it and I think it's really important. We're seeing uh, the first time I think that it really was an inspirational moment for me was if you're familiar with Dollar Shave Club.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so everyone knows Dollar Shave Club. Dollar Shave Club became famous when their CEO got a video camera in front of him, walked through his warehouse, and told people how he was going to make shopping for razors better. And everybody knew his face. They knew the people in his warehouse that they saw. And then he said, I want to give that guy some money for razors because I think it's good for me, but I also like him. Right. And we're seeing that grow in marketing. So we're seeing commercials with the CEO of Walmart calling his employees heroes.
Right.
We're seeing commercials for Culver's is another one that I saw. If anyone listening doesn't have that in their area, they're a fast food burger chain, and the CEO has this marketing campaign where he's in the store talking to customers, saying how much he likes his employees, and they make really good fresh meat burgers. It's personal, right? And in the commercial, he's shaking hands with customers that when you go to Culver's, you almost think of, I'm doing business with him. So how does your business do that? You send emails with the CEO's name or the employees' names. Everyone who's getting marketing emails right now is getting emails from names more than companies, even. So Joe at Coldesi is an email that you're going to get now, and it's going to message from Joe. And it's important to do that in video content, written content, email content, even ads.
So I don't know the food that you referenced because I don't have it here. But going back to the Dollar Shave Club, I remember that video hitting too. I mean, vividly, because that kind of changed video and online digital marketing. But I also remember him being incredibly charismatic. How much of marketing is being an entertainer? And then on top of that, I guess what's more important, your company's goals, or the emotional state of your customers?
Okay. All right. So when we're talking about being an entertainer versus being informative, right? It really helps if you've got somebody that can be on camera that's fairly charismatic, right? You don't have to be, you'll never be as good as the best, right? Because only the best are going to be the best at being charismatic.
Sure, Gary V is Gary V, and you and I are probably not going to be Gary V.
Exactly. And there's plenty of those examples out there, and it's true of politicians. People just like a politician more than another, maybe, and they don't know why, even if they agree on policy, right? So there's something about being charismatic. So that's a bonus if you have that. But you don't have to be incredibly charismatic to impact your customers. You have to be there for them personally and in your marketing. So when we're talking about entertaining and informing, right, as a back and forth, what's the job of a marketer? A marketer has to do both of those things, right? In informing is your Miva API documentation. That's supposed to inform me. The paper that they staple to my bottle of medication, that's supposed to inform me. I'm not supposed to be entertained. It's supposed to be hard facts, right? When it comes to marketing, the marketing is designed to deliver a message your business wants to deliver in a way your audience will receive it willingly and positively. So if you're going to do that, then the best way to do it is through some sort of entertainment in a way, just meaning that, and that entertainment might be educational, specifically. And there's a lot of things you could do. Geico attempts to be funny and that works for them. But realistically, if you're being honest and open and you're sharing information with your customers personally, and you're doing it in a lighthearted and honest way, they will see you're passionate about it, and the folks who are interested in your products will absolutely be willing to listen, and they'll receive it positively.
Yeah. So, and we're kind of working through your PG acronym, which we'll come back to. But one of your items is content dynamics. Is that what are content dynamics, and is that putting on different personality for different audiences, or kind of teach me?
Yeah. Okay. So when I talk about content dynamics, and I talk about that in when we do things every day. right? There is ultimately, if you sell multiple versions of products, right? So there's stores that sell vintage clothing, right? And they're selling vintage clothing for men and for women and for children, right? And these are three different avatars of people they're talking to, right? You've got the adult male, you've got the adult woman, and then you've got the child of one of those, because the child is not buying it on the internet by themselves, right? And they're shopping for this. Ultimately, when you're creating content, it's important to create content for these three avatars, if those are the three avatars you're looking at. So your content needs to be changing and flowing between these three. Also, lining up to just your core concept of what your content should look like. So maybe it's a video of what the apparel looks like, or maybe you're discussing the very specifics of how it's made, or maybe you're describing the time period that it comes from. Now, in addition to that, when you're talking about different avatars for the different products you sell, that needs to change and be dynamic between those. But also, if you're talking about, say, pieces of apparel, right there, you might be able to buy a custom vintage outfit, from that's inexpensive versus one that's extremely high end, right? So you could be talking about an outfit that costs $500 or an outfit that costs $40. Again, those might be two different messages. So I would say, from an extreme standpoint, which is an impossible standpoint, right? An impossible standpoint is every single product, including if you sell it in bulk or single piece, being two different products, should have different content messages for them, right? That's on the extreme level. Nobody has that type of time or money to do that, and nor is it probably appropriate, especially if you have thousands of SKUs in your store. So you start to break that down into something that makes sense.
So how much of that stuff can actually be automated?
So when it comes to, if we're talking about like content automation with that, that's actually not too hard at all if you're using some pretty good tools as far as automating your content. So one of the things I would recommend to do is, right, level one content automation might be having a pop-up on your store that says $10 coupon, right? This simple marketing automation. It pops up after 30 seconds. They sign up for an email, they get a coupon right away, and then they probably get a series of emails afterwards. And those might say that automation might be, if they have not purchased, continue down this chain. If they have purchased, go down this chain, right? So how do you automate that differently? If they land on different product pages, you have different content for that. So one that we do, for example, we had a $10 coupon as an example that worked really well. We had on our embroidery pages, or embroidery supplies, those sales are $50 to $300 maybe typical. And $10 is a reasonable coupon for that. If I'm going to spend $100, a $10 coupon is 10% off. I'm happy with that. We have another product line for digital printing that the average sale is $350 to $1,000. That $10 now,
$10 isn't a game changer there.
It's not a game changer. However, a piece of content that said how to be more efficient with your printer and your paper, so you don't waste supplies and time.
Yeah, how to double the lifespan of my expensive printer or something. And I know
they loved it.
Space, so I was making one up. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
In some ways, is automating kind of the same as targeting, if you will, in social media ads?
Yeah, sure. So when I really get into when we really talk about automation, targeting is part of that solution, but more so it's about creating a system that is more employees without being people. And so specifically what you would want to do, as an example, is you want to be able to create software, bots, whatever you want to call them, to do things for you that you would normally do yourself if you had, if this was marketing in 1990, what just people would have done, right? So if we want to talk about just a very small business right now, as a brief example, right? You're a very small business, you have an online store, and you're getting not even very small. Maybe you're even still getting big. Maybe you have 20 orders a day, right? That's a decent business if you have 20 orders a day through an online store. So you can want to get reviews, right? We all know that positive reviews are great for a business. There's not too much argument that that's a fact. So you could get your reviews passively, no work at all. Just wait for people to write something on Google. You can ask for reviews, a very forward approach in actively seeking reviews. Every time somebody orders, you email that person and say, hey, thanks for the order. I'd love for you to give me a Google review. If you are happy, here's the link. And you could do that manually. Sure, it's free to do that. And it won't even take you that long, 20 orders a day, right? As you start getting 100, 200, 500 orders, it becomes a full-time job to send that. You need to automate your system as best as you can. So,
I was going to say the automation of workers seems really relevant, especially as most of us are likely shifting to a full-time or mostly work from home situation in the new world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so anything you can do to have the software do it for you, and automation goes, it's everything. My technical title, within the company would also include director of e-commerce and marketing automation. So we connect everything together that we possibly can to make sure that all of our systems are talking to each other and things are getting in front of customers. So this is a full line of lead comes in, get it going to the CRM, connecting with our Miva store. If somebody is purchasing something online, it's going into the CRM. That's not including the sale that our salesperson is directly making, and that's coinciding with retargeting ads, Facebook ads. All these are connecting and talking to each other, and ultimately all the way down to the review at the end, and then the follow up. All of it needs to be connected.
I think many businesses or many people have been afraid of automation for a long time. But at this point, it's literally to help businesses stay afloat as we shift through the current disruption. Is the goal? Sorry, I didn't.
I was actually just going to say, this is how I did it, and we've got a lot of automation. We've got a lot of custom dev work. We've got Zaps running. If you're familiar with Zapier, we've got Zaps running. We've got custom dev work. We've got software that integrates with itself natively. We've got a ton, dozens and dozens of documents on just spelling out what they do. Just start really simple, right? Get like a MailChimp or Klaviyo or Constant Contact connected to your e-commerce store. And when trigger whatever event you can to send a series of emails. And that's step one. Once you do that, you'll start realizing different levels of connections, I think. And typically you can connect that then to a Facebook ad, right? And that can connect to, of course, is going to connect to an Instagram ad. And you can also connect that to creating a new list. And so just start with something. Email marketing is probably one of the simplest to start with, just because nowadays it's really cheap. It's almost free, and it's all built in pretty much.
Ultimately, you might argue that the goal of all this automation is to make happy customers, right? And I wouldn't say it was cynical to say that a happy client is one who makes purchases. What are your thoughts there?
No, it is. Thinking about that can be slightly cynical, and but the reality is this, though, right? It's so much simpler than that, right? Because I've gone back and forth. You try to use a word to define everybody: clients, customers, consumers. I've been more leaning towards consumer lately, because what I want people to like what we have to deliver to them. We want fans, right? If somebody never buys from you ever, but they like everything that you make, meaning they watch your videos, they give you positive feedback, they share your videos, they recommend you to people, they open your emails, they answer your surveys, they participate in everything that you do, they're advertising for you. You are getting customers from those folks that never buy from you. So ultimately, a happy client or consumer is just are people you're turning into fans for whatever that is. That means they don't unsubscribe to your emails. They listen to your podcast. They read your articles, watch your videos. They follow you on social media. You're creating this culture of fans and people who some of them will be clients and customers, and some of them will just be fans, and some of them will be passive forever until one day they do something that turns them into a fan or a customer.
I mean, kind of calling back to the Peachy acronym. Is that your definition then of a yes ready customer? Anyone who fits one of those boats?
Yeah. So maybe this is a decent time to kind of break it down a little bit, and then I could finish with that.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So we talk about like Peachy, right? And I'll give a short version of it. I've been working on, first it started off, it was going to be a blog post. Then it was going to be an article. And then now we're talking about, it's probably just going to be an ebook that we'll have available to our customers. We'll see how much more content comes out of it. But here's a preview for folks who are interested in it. I find it to be interesting, so hopefully you will too. So Peachy, P is personal, like personalizing your brand, right? So we talked about the Walmart CEO talking about his employees are heroes, Dollar Shave Club. So you write emails, you get in videos, you share a message of you. Our CEO Scott he's not a video person. He doesn't write articles. He's a business person more in lines. He's more behind the scenes of making plans and working on things with us. What we do is he wrote a letter that we send out to every customer with his picture on it. So here's the CEO. Then they know me. They know Mark Stevenson. They know the other people on our team. All of our emails have pictures of our staff on it. We explain what they are, and we try to involve anybody who's willing and able to be on the podcast, videos, articles, whatever it is. So personalize your brand. Make it about the people, not just the company. The E stands for edutainment, which is kind of a new word, but it's a way to educate and entertain people at the same time. So you need to show people how to use your products, use your services. You think of makeup brands nowadays. Small makeup brands have excelled way past all the stuff you see in the malls and things like that. These small brands have skyrocketed by showing people on YouTube and through video, whatever it might be, how to do makeup in different ways.
Yep.
So entertain and educate your customers as much as you can. It's easy to talk about makeup. I'm not going to lie, right? That's a simple example because it's hard to do from what I understand to make it look great. And so you watch a video on how to do it. Well, what do I do if I don't sell something that's that interesting, right? What do I do if I sell just t-shirts with designs on it, right? So you've got to not make an excuse in that it's hard. What do I do is I would teach everybody about the different types of shirts. What are the different types of cottons? Why we chose this shirt. Razors are not that interesting and entertaining, but if you go to the Dollar Shave Club website and you look around, there are articles about razors and what they are interesting, and you will look at them. So anyway, moving on, automation, like I said, is automation. That's hiring additional employees through bots, through automation. So I mentioned the pop-up email collection, right? We talked about reviews, automating the reviews, getting your CRM and your e-commerce store connected. When you've got to find any way you can, anytime a person is moving something from A to B, see if you can automate that, because you can then start to get granular with it. You made an automated pop-up. Well, now I have 2 automated pop-ups. I think on my e-commerce store now, I think we have 12 different automated pop-ups that only show up on certain stores to certain customers at certain times, because we've realized that it's relevant to them at that point in time. It's all automated. We look at stats over time. So when we look at our automation, we've got a lead that goes to an email automation that gets sent over to a CRM. The CRM goes through an automation for the salesperson to follow up, giving them reminders, which would lead to a purchase. However, if they do not purchase, they go down another line where they get different emails and different retargeting. Those purchases turn into email segments. Those are further email automations. It's also pinging out to send them to do a review. That's pinging out to share them with our rewards program, which is different Facebook marketing, different retargeting. And again, back to the CRM, we're connecting everything together. So as our customers are moving, information is moving with them. And then we can do little things, even if it's just send an email to the right people. Next one we got is content dynamics. We talked about that. Your content is your path to success. I just still think, There's this concept that was going around for a while. Content is king, and that's how you get good SEO and all this stuff. I really just still believe that it's just simple, right? If you want to sell something to folks, if you want to sell a product, if you're easy to be found on the internet, if you educate people, if it's interesting enough to read, if you've whatever it is, videos, emails, articles, infographics, if you've got enough of this stuff out there that is ever changing with the culture and the times and your products, you're going to sell. You're going to sell. And then ultimately we have the happy clients, H, right? H means these are your listeners, your followers, your consumers, the folks who watch everything as I described before. The one example I always think about this one is Chick-Fil-A as a store, right? Chick-Fil-A is a fast food chain in a very competitive market. They're closed one day of the week. 1/7 of the time they're closed when everyone else is open. They just sell chicken compared to other places have beef, fish, chicken, everything. Chick-fil-A is growing 10 to 15% every year over year, consistently. They're consistently getting awards, America's favorite fast food chain, all these things like that. Why? They're creating a marketing culture of happy clients. One might argue that they make a good quality food, right? Which is obviously a good product as part of the equation, period. But they figured out other ways to keep people happy. They're known for being super nice in line. They have a fun app where you get rewards and random free sandwiches and things like that. It's created a culture where people are happy to just kind of be involved in their community. They're happy to have the app on their phone. So you've got to create this good, positive environment in your marketing all the time that yields a positive vibe, I think. That says if I'm partnering with this company, if I'm partnering with Miva or Coleman and Company or Cold Essie, that I'm going to be more successful because I work with this company, or I'm going to be happier because I work with this company. For in Chick-fil-A's sense, it might be I'm going to enjoy my lunch more if I eat there, right? And they're creating this, and there's plenty of other examples. And then lastly, it finishes with Y, which is what I call yes, ready consumers. Yes, that means you have people ready to say yes, and that doesn't just mean buy your stuff. Okay, that means they say yes to opening your emails, yes to watching your videos, yes to when they see your ad, they don't dismiss it or say I don't want to see it. Yes to sharing your content, yes to leaving positive reviews, saying yes to recommending you to people. Saying yes to answering your surveys, and then ultimately saying yes to buy this when you send them an email and you say, hey, here's a new product, buy it. And that's kind of where the inspiration came from. If you build this concept that's kind of peachy, which is corny, but I just find it entertaining. I entertain myself mostly. But when you develop something like this in your marketing, you find that your content, when it is relevant, it's still very evergreen for the long term. And when you do reach a crisis, good or bad, there's a good crisis might be like a big merger. You're prepared to easily dive in. So a brief example of one thing we did, as soon as kind of March came and it was madness everywhere, nobody knew what was happening. We've already created a culture of creating content, teaching people what to do. We immediately just dove in and said, we're going to do content every day. We're going to show people how to do stuff. And we're not ignoring that we're in a crisis, but the video turned into, hey, I'm at home. Let me show you. And I did this video. Let me show you guys how to make this type of t-shirt with this type of equipment at home. And I can tell you some stories about how other people are making money doing this right here. And you can too. You don't have your store anymore open, but you've got your equipment, you've got your house, the mail is still running, the internet is still on, and you can do things. You can sell some t-shirts. And we gave them some free art on top of that. Here's some free art you can use. Use this. Here's different people here's different ways you can sell it, right? Contact the schools closed, contact the PTA Let them know you have a t-shirt company and you're selling any kid who has a birthday coming up over the next couple months. You can make a family pack of t-shirts that they can send out to all of their family. And when you do a Zoom meeting, you've got 12 people on there wearing a t-shirt with the kid's name on it. It makes the kid feel good. It's a very positive vibe. And you as a business owner are remaining giving yourself a level of success.
Yeah, no, look, that all makes perfect sense to me. And Marc, I want to thank you for sharing your peachy concept with our listeners and followers. It's ultimately a core marketing approach that works now, but it'll work next year and beyond. If I can ride along your wave for a second, I would argue that that's what Dragonproof is all about as well. So with that said, we would love to get you to do a guest blog on Miva about these concepts. Your positivity is great and infectious. So thank you for joining us, Marc.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it too. I love that you let me go on my rants for a little bit too, but it's what I do. I do a podcast too. So
no, you're a very good speaker, which is why I didn't have to step in and do very much about it.
So I appreciate everyone listening to that. And as a final thought with it all, you just mentioning the positivity. It's something that it's jokingly, because oftentimes people will say, man, you are cynical, or you are so skeptical. And I just say, like, I'm just always thinking about this stuff. And if you sit there and wallow when something bad has happened, you don't win, right? You don't win, but nobody ever won because they wallowed the longest.
Yep.
So I think when it comes or how cynical or skeptical you are, like if you're pushing forward and you're trying to do something new and different, and being humble by reevaluating your thoughts and writing silly, stupid things like a peachy concept for marketing, that these are all just recipes for success. You're throwing darts at a dartboard and you don't know when you're going to hit the bullseye. And but the more you do it, the closer you get to the bullseye and the more bullseyes you get. And then your business is going to thrive more than the person who, drops the darts on the table and sits down and says, I'm going to wait for the bar to open back up before I'm throwing another one.
Well, for those listeners out there, if you've enjoyed Marc as much as I have, I strongly recommend listening to his podcast, Custom Apparel Startups. And with that said, thank you for listening to this episode of the Dragonproof e-commerce podcast. Please leave us a review on any of your favorite podcast platforms. As I'm always told, I'm even told a bad review could be okay, but I prefer the good ones. And with that said, I will be back to talk to you all soon.